What is the Volunteer Match Network? Imagine a world of volunteers looking for their perfect match.
When a nonprofit posts a volunteer opportunity on Volunteer Match, that opportunity has the potential to reach millions of interested volunteers. To illustrate the reach of our network, let's imagine that this piece of candy represents 10,000 people. An average of 15 million people visit volunteermatch.org each year. In addition, each volunteer opportunity has the potential to reach 10 million pro bono and skilled volunteers through LinkedIn's Volunteer Marketplace. 2.6 million employee volunteers search for our opportunities from companies like Starbucks, Groupon, and JetBlue. And more than 500,000 employee volunteers from multiple corporate giving platforms have access to volunteer opportunities from our network. Since 1998, Volunteer Match has facilitated over 12 million nonprofit volunteer connections. Now that you know more about the reach of our network, get started by going to volunteermatch.org and posting your volunteer opportunity today.
So one of the things that I would like to talk with you guys about today is how do we practice social work in a global digital age? How do we stay connected to each other? How do we support each other in practice? How do we increase outcomes for the clients and service users that we work with daily? And how can technology support us in doing that? One of the things that a lot of social workers fear is that technology will be a replacement for what we do in the human interaction that we provide to service users and to each other. And so one of the things that I'll be talking about during this presentation is how to use social work and social media as a tool versus a replacement for what we already do, but rather an enhancement to help magnify the work that we're doing on the ground. So thank you, Greta, for that wonderful presentation introduction. I just added in some information so that if you guys who may not have heard of me or may not be familiar with Social Work Helper, because it is a US-based digital publication, here's some information about myself that you can look up. You can Google. My Twitter handle is also right below my picture, so that if you want to connect with me on the various different platforms, I'm also on Instagram. And at the end of the presentation, I'll give you all the links where you can connect with me if you like. I'm always open to ask questions. Part of being able to reach out to someone across the Atlantic or a variety of places around the world is that I find that we have more things in common than we have different. And so being able to help facilitate those conversations and share experiences of social workers where they are located locally helps us to feel more connected globally and more supported in practice. So here's my information. If you get a chance and you're not doing anything, here's the information that you can Google or connect to connect with me. So the first thing we're going to talk about is global social work. What is it? It's sort of a term that we kind of throw around, or you may have heard in one of your classes somewhere or in your training or CPD at some point. It's something that is almost a theoretical term. It's something that we aspire to, but is it a practice? What exactly is it? So the International Federation of Social Workers, which is a consortium of social work associations that have gotten together. This would comprise of your British Association of Social Work, located in the UK, your Scottish Association, your Asian Association, the National Association of Social Workers here in the US. They actually have probably 40 to 50 different associations from countries all around the world that come together to discuss how to connect social work globally. How do we learn from each other? How do we identify the pressing issues of the profession. How do we advance the discipline in our education systems? So they talk about a variety of issues. How do we, research? Social workers kind of, we are in every facet of a human being's life, from birth to death. We are there, and so these groups get together, which is an awesome thing. They're actually going to be together in Scotland, in Edinburgh, Scotland, in September for their yearly global conference. And so that's going to be an opportunity for the social work leaders within the profession to share information. They're also going to have a day of training where a variety of social workers from Australia, the U.S., the UK, go to different localities, different local authorities, and to see how we function in different spaces. There are differences between social work agencies depending on the country, but there are also a lot of similarities in the issues that our clients and service users face in trying to minimize risk and to reduce crisis. So from the definition that the IFSW came up with, it basically says that social work is a practice-based profession, an academic discipline that promotes social change and development, social cohesion, and the empowerment and liberation of people. Principles of social justice, human rights, collective responsibility, and a respect for diversities are central to social work. So when I read that, I interpret social work or global social work to really focus on human rights, social justice issues, macro practice. And so sometimes there is a division within our profession where do we focus on micro practice? Am I a micro practitioner? Because I do direct practice, I work on the service user level, I'm a frontline worker, or do I have to choose if I want to practice macro practice, if I want to focus on human rights issues, social justice issues, poverty issues, and look at social policy and politics. And so one of the things that I'm going to be discussing, and one of the things that I practice daily with social work helper and the people that I interact with, I argue that a social worker should not have to choose, that both micro and macro practice are interconnected, and that when you separate micro from macro, that we actually do a disservice to our practice, to our profession, by not being able to advocate at the macro level. We cannot advocate for proper funding, for resources for our clients, or even better working conditions for ourselves. So we have to practice on both levels in order to advance our profession. And that's what I argue on a daily basis with different social workers around the world. But hopefully you'll have enough information at the end of this webinar to look at this issue and make a decision for yourself as to, do you want to only be aware of issues that affect you individually, or do you want to expand that focus, look at issues globally to see how you can create a better impact for yourself and community, which will ultimately increase your outcomes. So it's a matter of us looking at our perspective and trying to see the bigger picture. So here are a few areas where I feel social workers should be the leading voices, whether it's on the local level, the national level, the global level. These are areas where I feel social workers should be leading the conversation, should be the experts in these discussions, with the politicians, with the news analysts, in news articles. These are the areas where individuals outside of these areas would be looking at social work to find experts. And that would be poverty, human rights, climate change, increasing outcomes for children and families, vulnerable adults, emergency and disaster relief. These are a lot of issues that we often relegate to non-governmental agencies or governmental agencies to take care of. But social workers are in both of these entities all throughout, and we are at the service level, we're at the practice level, we're at the policy making level, but oftentimes we may be using different titles, and we also may not identify the work that we do because we're so focused on doing the work that we don't feel it necessary to promote or to brand the work that we're doing in order to show the public the value of the work that social workers provide. So that is one of the ways that I will be talking about how technology can help us not only magnify what we're doing locally, but also help bring value to the work that we do as social workers. Looking at the bigger picture, these are the top three pictures, the top two pictures, the picture on the left with the migrant welcome here. All of these protests occurred in London. One is reference to Black Lives Matter in reference to the police brutality killings of unarmed Black men here in America. It's a huge issue, causing a lot of civil unrest, a lot of protests, just a lot of fear within the African American community here in the United States, which we have a long history of, going all the way back to slavery, to the civil rights movement, the Jim Crow era. I actually wrote a policy paper for the Critical Radical Social Work Journal on Ferguson, and so maybe that's something that I can include later that I didn't include in this presentation, but that is something that if you want to read, I can also email that to Greta and she can get that to you. But there is civil unrest around the world. The Baby P situation caused huge protests in London. Just as recently as last week, there were lots of protests protesting the migrants, the 900 migrant workers who died trying to escape to a better life, trying to escape from poverty. And also you had the disaster, the natural disaster, earthquake in Nepal. So poverty, natural disasters, all of these things, migration, civil rights, human rights, all of these things intersect. And when we look at how they intersect globally, we can also trace those things back to those same issues affecting us locally. We may not think about how we may see the evidence of how things are affecting us locally, but sometimes we may think, well, what can I do about it? I'm just one person. But one person together with a lot of people taking small actions can have huge impact. And so with a lot of the current issues that we have seen that manifest in the media, they started on social media first because people were not covering it. These were people who have very little voices. They have no political power, no political strength. They are poverty-stricken. And so when it comes to elevating the massive amounts of tragedy that's affecting these communities, the major news outlets were not covering it. So social media was a huge impact in drawing attention to these vital issues and also keeping those issues in front of the public, making us more aware of how suffering is universal, and how we can help, how we can impact, whether we can do it financially, whether it's about awareness, whether it's about being more informed, that when we engage with someone who's been a part of a tragedy or a crisis, that we're more compassionate and empathetic to the issues that they have went through. Also to make us aware of seeking more answers and information about someone's experiences and history so that we don't compound the tragedy that they experience by being more oppressive to someone who's experienced tragedy. So being aware of what's going on helps us in our practice, even at the direct service level, at the direct practice service level, front line, with that one-on-one client interaction. It helps us by being more globally aware. So where are social workers when these crises are happening? There's unrest all over the world, whether it be Palestine. I mean, there's so many things going on right now that as social workers, I think we should be caring about. We should be wanting to keep a status update of what's going on with the way the world is working today. Austerity measures are hitting the U.S. and countries all over the world, and social workers and social service agencies are receiving less and less funding to do more and more work. So it's the opportunity for us to really step up and be a voice for our clients and ourselves. And I really do believe that social workers are out there providing services during these crises. We're protesting, we're volunteering in our spare time with everyone else. When we look at those photos of people protesting, I know there's social workers in there somewhere. But, you know, we are a humble type profession. We really don't claim the work that we do, or we don't really fully brand or provide the value that we add to a situation with our experience and our expertise. And so social media and technology, I know a lot of social workers may say, well, I've done X, Y, Z, I'm doing this, here's what we're doing on the ground, may seem like it's bragging, but when we can elevate the work of social workers, we bring value to what social workers do, who we serve. And when the public values social work, then we're able to get more funding. We're able to justify what is needed. Out of sight, out of mind means that everything's okay, and people will divert and reallocate those funds to other places where, you know, teachers are very active. They normally get the funding that they need for whatever situation. Law enforcement normally doesn't have very much difficulty justifying why they need funding. But social workers, we kind of sit back and say, well, you know, the funding to come and we'll work with whatever we have. And so I think by us organizing, being more connected together, both locally and on the global level, that we can assist each other in bringing more attention to what we do for each other as a support, and as well as showing the value of the profession to the public. And so the questions are, why are we not visible? Is it because we're afraid of using new technology, new digital media, or do we even know how to use it? A lot of the concerns that I've heard from social workers and social work students is that our curriculums are not designed with a technology component to help us reduce risk to ourselves and increase our knowledge in using technology to promote our work, to promote our professional selves, and to help bring value and brand our profession as a professional profession instead of a volunteer profession or a profession that deserves low wages. We often don't show that the many skills, assets, and abilities that social workers have. And so technology is an opportunity for us to leverage it to our advantage. Are we writing editorials to let others know, other social workers know what we're doing so we can gain support? Are we writing other editorials so that we can create allies with other disciplines who are working on the same issues, the same poverty issues, or the same climate change issues that we're passionate about? Are we using these tools to leverage allies? And also, are we using these tools to help inform and provide information to our service users? There's a lot of times where we are using archaic means of providing information to our clients, and it increases our load because you have one phone call, one email, one fax, and we're having to do that for a ton of clients instead of leveraging new technologies, leveraging new ways of disseminating information on social media, so we're not having to have the same conversation with multiple clients. And so there are many ways that we can use technology, both at the agency level and the individual level and the global level, to help reduce load and increase efficiency. But there are many challenges with social media as well. A lot of people are concerned about their privacy, about being disciplined for using social media inappropriately, whether at work or in your personal life. And so also many people may feel, well, look, I'm overburdened already. I have a huge caseload. I really don't have time to learn how to use social media or to write articles or to engage in technology. My caseload's already full. The same thought processes may be used in whether to engage the political process or be involved in policy-making decisions. Many times social workers are already overworked, overbooked, and so these things may seem like secondary issues or something to put on the back burner for later, but not right now because I have a lot going on. Also, burnout, compassion fatigue, secondary trauma, high caseloads, a high-stress job. These are all valid reasons why we may disconnect from the global connection, the national connection, or being engaged in political and organizing efforts. I mean, it is a lot when you have a high-stress job and you have a family, or you may be a single parent, or you may be a single individual. You are juggling a lot. And so all of these are valid reasons why people may not have time to, or may not see how engaging with technology or social media can help reduce those loads or reduce some of the stress and fear that you may have, especially in the UK. I know there are many civilian type blogs or websites where they publicly shame workers in the United Kingdom. Here in the United States, that is not an issue that we are as concerned about. But I do know, and I have seen some of the websites over there where there is a real fear and concern that you should be concerned about for your safety and your privacy. And so one of the things that I'm going to be talking about is how to protect yourself, how to utilize some tips and suggestions of how to use social media to protect yourself, especially when you're working in a direct practice or child welfare, child protection, mental health position where your client may be Googling you. So the question is to use or not to use social media. This is a question that a lot of social workers go back and forth on. The profession is starting to embrace new technologies and social media more, but we're still far behind other disciplines in how to adapt these technologies and make it more effective on all practice levels. And also, we have to find a way to communicate to our politicians, to our political leaders, how social work is impacting or important and valuable to the public safety. And a lot of times there's a disconnect on how we can communicate with them. But social media is a game changer because many politicians, many leaders, many company leaders, they have embraced technology in a way that social work has not. And often you may be able to tweet to a CEO or tweet to a member of parliament or Congress, and they might tweet you back. And so this opens and creates an opportunity for us to have a dialogue with someone that we would normally not have access to. Normally you would have to either write a letter or send an email, and maybe it would go to a staffer, and then someone would run it up the chain if it actually made it that far. Social media cuts out a lot of middlemen and give you direct access. So there is a lot of power and a lot of advantages to using social media. Now, for someone who's working in policy, community organizing, social media is essential in carving yourself out as an expert in your field. For instance, one of the reasons that I created Social Work Helper, I had been working for a while, and I decided to go back to graduate school to get my master's degree. And I ended up having to quit my full-time job to go to school full-time, which I was halfway through my program because my internship was just so extensive that I had to quit a job doing social work to work for free doing the exact same thing. And for me, that just did not sit well with me. As a single individual, I just felt like I should not have to quit a full-time job with health benefits, with a 401k, with retirement, and losing all of that because I have already spent so much money on half my education, and to finish, they wouldn't count my work experience. So for me, my story was not unique. It happened to a lot of people. It's happening to a lot of people now. But for me, I just couldn't give it up. I had a lot to say about it and no place to say it because, programs did not want to talk about, a lot of people can't afford to go to college, but for someone who may be single, may need to work. And so after graduating, I just could not let it go. It was a policy issue that concerned me, and I wanted to talk about it. But nobody else wanted to talk about it. None of the other social work platforms felt that it was an issue. There was a consensus that, well, hey, if you want to get your master's degree, that's the sacrifice that you have to take. At the time here in the United States, I wasn't allowed to have health insurance, so I was going to school, no health insurance, and so it was a tough period of time. So I decided to create a platform to see if there was other people out there like me. And so what I learned from that experience when I created Social Work Helper, I was just a social worker who had a newly graduated degree with a lot to say, and I opened a Twitter account. I built Social Work Helper myself from scratch. Technology was something that I did on the side for, to make a little extra cash or to just actually have a place to wind down. It was a place where it was a hobby for me. And so I decided to take my hobby and to see if there was other social workers out there who was experiencing the same thing. And what I found was that there are so many of us who are facing challenges, hardships, whether it be with a sick child or unemployment, whatever the case. There's so many of us out there who can't afford to, and I'm speaking here from the United States, who couldn't afford to join an organization. And so they just felt isolated from the profession. They already graduated school, so the school was not a support for them anymore. And so once I started Social Work Helper, it was like a beacon for these folks who felt isolated to come together. And this is how Social Work Helper has grown. And so now being able to have those platforms and those spaces open for people to write and say, this is what's going on in my life. I'm having difficult with this type of practice issue. What do I do? I'm having an ethical dilemma. I feel that I help with Social Work Helper. I help people feel more supported. There are times that I may not can do anything about the challenges they're facing, but I can offer a platform for them to vent about it in a way that is solution focused, in an effort to gain the attention of social work leadership and to advocate for change. One of the issues about oppression is when you have no place to tell your issue to, when you have no one listening, that oppression and feeling of isolation can cause good people who need to be in this profession, to walk away. And so hopefully I can give people an opportunity to discuss issues before they say, well, I'm ready to throw in the towel and I don't want to be a social worker anymore. But even if you're doing direct practice and you decide to walk away, there's many ways to be a social worker. And global social work is definitely a place where maybe you're burnt out from doing direct practice, but you can focus on increasing awareness for, whatever health concern, whatever issue that you're passionate about, whether it's child protection or a mental health disorder. There are many ways to do social work, and social media helps us with that avenue that might have been closed without it. And so with the practice versus social media, I pinned an article after the HCPC issued a discipline for a social worker who posted 2 Facebook comments related to a court hearing in a matter of a child removal. And so Facebook, social media, there are dangers and concerns, but they also have many benefits. And so I penned a long article, it's about 2,000 words, where I talk about this decision in depth, and I also give you tips of how to navigate social media. One of the things that's going to surprise you, even though on all my social media outlets, I probably have over 110,000 people following me just on social media. The thing that you will probably be surprised at is that I don't use social media for personal use. If I have a family member or a friend that I want to talk to, I will text and I will call them, but I don't use social media for personal use. Everything I use is either informational, resources, news related. I don't post anything that I don't feel is consistent with my professional profile, the persona that I want presented professionally. So if a client looks me up, they're going to see information and resources that they might use, because I take for granted that someone's going to Google me. So if I know that someone is going to Google me, why not give them information that they can find useful? And so I take that and I take that weakness where somebody might say that's a weakness, but I take it and I try to turn it into a strength. Because we are in a digital age. My Facebook account is secured, and I use a Facebook fan page to communicate with people. And so I don't have the dilemma of, do I allow clients to connect with me or not? They can follow the page, they can see the resources and the news reports and things that I post, and it eliminates an ethical dilemma. So I think people have to decide. I know that a lot of people grew up in the social media age where social media was used as entertainment. I grew up in the social media age where when I was in college, undergrad, there wasn't an internet. The internet didn't come until like 95. And so there was like a huge telephone book with all the web addresses that you could go to. My first computer science class, we had to write programs for a calculator. There was no click on program and pull up calculator. You had to build your calculator from scratch with code. And so I didn't grow up in the social media era. So I've learned how to use it as a tool versus a way of life. It's not, social media is not it's a daily component in my life, but my life is not online. My professional work, my passion for the populations that I care about, the policies that I would like to affect change. You see my passion in my social media profiles, but my family and the things that I hold dear, I keep for myself. I don't put that on social media. And so I think but that's fine if people do. A lot of people use social media like a diary, and I don't advocate for that. But if that's something that you decide to do, one of the tips that I give in this long article is to have a avatar account, or like with Facebook, use a middle name or a maiden name or your mother's maiden name to secure your account. So if a client is looking for you under your professional work name, they're not going to find that account. And then you have an account under your professional work name. Or you can have a Facebook fan page under your professional work name. And you can use that so that clients can get information, where you can post resources for the population that you're serving. For Twitter, I don't advocate people posting personal stuff on your Twitter account, because I have had lots of connections and lots of collaborations based off of people reading my Twitter account. So if you feel that you need to rant, because there was another social worker who went on a rant against David Cameron, and he actually got disciplined for it. It was kind of funny, but he still got disciplined for it. I would suggest create an avatar account with a fake name if you feel like you want to go on a social rant. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, you know, as long as you're not being abusive ethically. I mean, people rant. That's what people use social media for. But as a professional, I wouldn't advocate you doing that in your professional name. In your professional, so I would suggest having an avatar account for if you want to rant, if that's your thing, and have a professional account so that you're doing the same thing as what I've advocated for Facebook. You're posting information, you're posting news resources, you're posting things that if a client or a new job is looking at you and checking out your personal profile to see what it is that you care about, it's something that you're proud to project. It's something that you're proud to portray. And so in this article, I hope there's some tips in there that you can use, maybe some food for thought on using social media to create your professional profile to help elevate yourself to an expert in your field. If it had not been for social media, I probably would not be doing this webinar right now to an international audience. Technology and social media has given me the ability to do that. And so I hope you check out that article and see if there's something in there that you can use or that you can think about for later if you ever want to go into the realm of creating a personal profile for yourself, or if you just want to secure the current media accounts that you have. And so for those who I see how technology can be beneficial. I can see how social media is beneficial. I'm on board with this global social work thing. How do I get involved? Well, here I have 3 easy steps that I think that you can start with to help yourself get more involved on the global and international level? First thing you need to do is identify your political party. Who represents you? Who represents your interests? Learn more about them on the local and national level. Social work is political. Many people try to separate social work from the politics, but your politicians determines practice, how your practice will operate, what your policies will be, what the laws will be, how much funding you will get, how large your caseloads will be. Your politicians determine all of that. So if social workers are sitting on the bench and not getting involved and being a part of those conversations, well, then we will be hard pressed to just accept what is given to us if we're not going to be a part of those conversations and fight for what we believe we deserve in order to help our clients increase their outcomes. The second thing that I would urge you to do is to follow your local, national, global issues. Now, a lot of people say that might be time-consuming to keep up with all this stuff. So the primary tip that I give to people is to, if you have access to a smartphone or a desktop, is to use Flipboard. Flipboard, I prefer to read my news versus watch my news, because watching the news is kind of depressing. And when you work in social work, you get enough of, stuff that you have to detox from in order to take care of yourself and your well-being. So I prefer to read my news. That way I can filter out all the stuff that I don't need. The news has a tendency to have the greatest hits of who was murdered and stabbed, at least here in the United States. And so using a tool like Flipboard can help you filter out what you don't need so that you get more of what you do need. And how it works is that you can pick different news sources that you like and compile them all. And what it'll do is create you a daily Flipboard of the sources that are relevant to what they think you like, depending on what you've been looking at. So it's very interactive, it's cool looking, and you can download it on your iPhone or your Android. And so this link right here is to the Social Work Helper Flipboard, so you'll get all the Social Work Helper articles, and then you can add like HuffPost UK or The Guardian to whatever you're looking at, and it'll compile all those different sources like Guardian Social Care, Community Care UK. It'll compile all those sources into that one little app for you, so you can just screen through them daily and just see what's going on. It'll give you a little synopsis, and if something catches your eye, you can click on it and go to the full article. This way, you got a handy nifty app that if you're sitting waiting for the train, the bus, or just have some time to waste, you can scroll through and see what's going on in the local, national, global scene. And it's a good way to keep informed so that you are aware that when policy or discussions arrive, you can actually participate versus being lost and not knowing what's going on in your community and why you should care about it. And so the last thing I suggest is get connected on social media. If I had to choose one social media account that I should say that all social workers should have, it would be Twitter. And the reason why I recommend Twitter is because we would not be able to be connected if it had not been for Twitter. With LinkedIn and Facebook and Google Plus and Instagram, most social platforms, you have to ask someone to accept you, and they can say yay or reject you. And if they don't know you, they can also classify you as spam, and then your account will get locked, and then you can't interact or invite anybody. Twitter is just the opposite. There are no rules as far as who you can tweet to, who you can connect with. it's pretty much open. And so you can identify, there are lots of social workers who have lists with other social workers that you can connect with. And before you know it, you have a huge active community of social workers from around the world, and you're starting to learn and hear different experiences, and it really opens up your thinking to a whole new level where you're really processing information at the local level differently because of these conversations you're having with social workers globally. So Twitter is the one account that if you're just refusing to engage with social media, Twitter is the one account that I would urge you to at least give it a chance. Also with Twitter, you can participate in real-time conversations called Twitter chats, where people talk all over the world, and you can ask questions, get information. Another reason why I love Twitter is that I have about 30,000 followers now, but if I have a practice question or a resource question, I can tweet that out, and within minutes, there are people from all over the world chiming in with, hey, here's a resource here, this is what we use here. And you really get to find a collaboration of ideas, and then you can take that information, synthesize it, and you may be able to create something new versus using an older template or something that didn't quite fit, because everybody brings a unique perspective. Also, I would recommend using LinkedIn, Tumblr, the Facebook fan page to connect, because one of the things that I've noticed, especially when I was working direct practice, is that most clients in impoverished communities have at least a cell phone, a smartphone, because for many of these families, they don't have access to a home computer, a home internet. But a smartphone may be the best device that they have as a connection to the outside world. This is where they're using their internet. This is where they're getting their computer access from their smartphone. And so Facebook and Twitter is one of the best ways to reach people in poor communities because they are using mobile access. Backing back up to the civil unrest and the social media that helped draw attention to what was going on in these impoverished communities is because everybody was using social media. They had access. Mobile technology is one of the best ways to reach poor communities or people who have limited resources. And so if we're not using the technologies that they are using, then we're creating a engagement barrier by not using what they are using. So those are just a couple of things to think about. And like I said, you know, you have to decide whether you want to. I don't advise using the same account for personal and professional. I advise you to separate those two out, or you can just decide to use a professional account for all of your social media needs and only post things that you don't care if anybody knows or anybody read or anybody Googles. So, you know, those are just my recommendations, not anything set in stone, but just something for you to think about, research, and give it some thought. And last, this is how to connect with me. If you want to stay up to date with global social work and social justice issues, you can follow me at www.socialworkhelper.com. I post content from all around the globe, from Australia to the UK, to United States. There are a couple of areas that we are slack, and I'm hoping to bring more content in for Latin America. And also, I would love to do some outreach to the Asian countries. And so, also, you can visit us on Facebook. There's about 75,000 Facebook fans, and we have some pretty heated conversations. We look at practice issues. We look at social justice issues, and one of the big things that's being discussed on Facebook right now on the Facebook fan page is the riots in Baltimore, Maryland, after one of the police brutality killings. Also, if you're interested in making a submission to Social Work Helper, maybe there's a pressing issue in your local community, or there's a practice issue. It doesn't always have to be social justice. It can be practice related. It can be mental health related, viewed from a social work lens. Also, Social Work Helper, we do a lot of pop cultural stuff. We look at sports events. We look at entertainment events from a social work lens. So, for instance, with some of the football players that had domestic violence issues, normally that would be a sports story, but we are able to write about that issue from a social work lens. I've even written an article on Coldplay and their philanthropy and nonprofit work. It's entertainment, but it's not gossip entertainment, but we're looking at people who do philanthropic and charitable contributions work through a social work lens. So there's a variety of things that you could talk about and share on Social Work Helper. So if you'll go to this link under submissions, it'll give you the guidelines, and you can also visit Social Work Helper to see if there's something that fits where you want to submit something. There's a little bit of something for everybody. And also, I'm on Twitter. You can follow my personal profile, which is at Deanna Hooper, or you can follow the magazine, which is SWHelper.com. I'm the voice behind both accounts, but my personal account, you may see some stuff on there about Sleepy Hollow or person of interest or scandal. I do tweet and watch TV, so it's a mixture of practice, social justice, and my TV passion. So that's the most personal I get on social media, is my TV addiction. So if you have any questions, you can email me at Deanna@socialworkhelper.com, or you can tweet me or hit me up on Facebook. I'm always available to help out a social worker or a helping professional or a community worker, whatever I can do to help make you feel supported in what you're doing. I appreciate the opportunity for being able to present and give my ideas and on social media and global social work and practice. So I hope that you enjoyed it. Thank you very much.